But yeah, moving on to something that I do mean to talk about for a long time: Spider-Man 2.
Oh yes.
Woo boy. I've never felt the wait for a game release more than this. Literally,
Mm.
for a couple nights straight, the main theme of the game, that was like the theme for the game was released early. And I listened to it a few times, was stuck in my head every night before it came out. I'm not joking. I'm trying to go to sleep, and in my mind, the theme song for the Spider-Man video game is playing in my head. I'm like, why are you doing this to me, brain? I just want to go to sleep. And the Wednesday night, I had before the game came out, I had a hard time falling asleep like it was Christmas.
Mhm.
It was crazy.
Oh,
I was
that's so
beyond
real.
excited for this game, and so was 2.5 million people who bought it within the first 3 days of it coming out, making it the fastest selling PlayStation game of all time.
Well, there you have it.
Um, so I'll start off spoiler free naturally, and let you guys know if I'm gonna mention any subtle spoilers. Excuse me. So the game is great, obviously, if you can't tell. But I want to talk about it. I platinumed it in 3 days and
Wow.
beat it in around like 30 hours. Um, so I prefer my open world games to be around 40 hours when it comes to
Mhm.
100% completion. But we'll get to that. The gameplay is naturally a market improvement. With several advancements made to the combat, the stealth, and the swinging. When it comes to the combat, they brought back the abilities from Miles Morales, where he has electric powers where Peter doesn't. So they
Mhm.
give you the ability to use four different abilities that you use by holding. What is it? You know what? I think the controls were different in Miles Morales than they are in the second game. So I'll talk about that
Oh.
later, actually, because I don't remember what they. It might have been L1, it might have been R1. I can't remember. But
Mhm.
yeah, they slightly changed how they work, giving them the ability to recharge and charge up faster as you attack the enemies. And also, they gave Peter some abilities tied to his Iron Spider legs that he has. Um, and of course, the symbiote later on in the game. Uh,
Right.
with stealth, they made it easier to move around areas with the ability to make a web line, which is essentially like a tightrope that you can
Ooh.
put almost anywhere so that you can stealthily take enemies down from above. Um, it's also so much easier to re-enter stealth if you get caught with Peter, who can't just turn invisible like Miles can. So in the
Right.
first game, once you got caught, you just had to fight everybody. But
Dang.
in Miles Morales, they fixed that because Miles can turn invisible. But now in this game, Peter can like run away and hide and re-enter stealth if he wants. And you're also no longer forced to either to like do stealth. It's always an option. You can always just fight everybody if you want
Cool.
to, except for the MJ missions. But we'll get to that. Um,
Mhm.
Traversal, so good. It's so good. The two biggest changes made is the speed of traversal and of course the addition of the web wings. You swing so much faster in this game, it's insane. And you can upgrade the swing speed, which makes it way faster. And I thought it was insane that they would want me to upgrade how fast this game swings when I'm already barely in control of how fast I'm swinging now. But eventually
Right.
got used to it and I upgraded it and it's real fun. And the web wings basically turn this game into Superman, especially when you fly through the wind tunnels that allow you to glide longer and faster.
Mhm.
Gliding is real fun. But the two unsung heroes of the traversal are the web slingshot and the loop de loop. The web slingshot allows you
Ooh.
to attach a web from each hand to any surrounding objects wherever you are, pull back and launch yourself forward into the air, and it's real good for uh, getting that initial speed necessary for you to glide longer and faster.
Right.
But also the loop de loop essentially, you can dive down and attach a web and you'll spin in a circle and then
Mhm.
shoot forward, and essentially allows you to keep your momentum while also allowing you to move faster while you're swinging. That way you don't have to stop. Because with the web slingshot, you have to stop and then do it. So this essentially allows you to do something similar, but without having to stop moving.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, the traversal is just so good. The score is great. Harry's theme and the music that plays during the very final boss is they're real good. I've been listening to them like all week.
Nice.
John
Nice.
Pisano, did a great job. Once again, it has me listening to the main theme on repeat and hearing it in my sleep. But yeah. And finally, the story is good. I love how they handle the symbiote arc and what they pulled from some more recent Venom solo comics to make the third act extremely hype. And Kraven was a far more interesting villain than he first seemed like he'd be. But the story has one major flaw that kept it from being great. And it was a big one, honestly. And that's that it sidelined Miles. It's Spider-Man 2.
Dang.
You got 2 Spider-Men. But it didn't feel like it. In this universe, like you can switch between Miles out in the open world, do whatever you want, do side quests. But outside of like the main story, Miles was virtually unseen. So in this universe, Miles is a musician and he wants to go to ESU for music production. So they gave him a side quest about retrieving stolen instruments from a museum of black music. And when after he gets all of the items back and goes to the museum the museum opening, he makes a lot of connections. Well, actually, the game just straight up. You walk up to it and to different items within the museum, and they'll give you a little bio about the person. And I learned a lot about some musicians that I've heard of, but didn't really know about, and that was really fun. And I feel like the only person there, I heard a lot of the names before, but hadn't like known anything about them. The only person who was in there that I already knew a lot about was Josephine Baker, because everybody learns about Josephine Baker at some point in school. But yeah, he made a lot of connections with how many of those musicians were also civil rights heroes, and how he is trying to do music and also be a hero, and it's very cool. Unfortunately, that side quest is some of the best Miles writing we get, because like I said, he is sidelined for a majority of the game's main story. He has 2 things going for him in the story. He's having a hard time writing his college essay, because he's about to graduate high school, and the supervillain who have you seen? Do you care about spoilers for the very first game?
Not really.
Okay. The supervillain who killed his father escaped prison. Of which only one of them has an interesting conclusion. But even then, the build up to it sucked. So as seen in all of the marketing, the game is dealing with the symbiote and Venom, which enhances the negative emotions of its users. So Peter is naturally going to be an overconfident asshole for like a decent part of the game. The thing is, I think that they could have easily tied Miles into the whole corrupting force storyline without giving him the symbiote. And here's how I think they could have done that. Despite how often he brings up how upset he is about Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, being out in the wild and escaping from prison, he doesn't actually do anything about it but complain every time you switch to him. He's just constantly going, I'm upset that the guy who killed my father's out. I want revenge. And then he does nothing. Miles' story missions should have been him hunting down Lee behind all of his friends and family's back and being uncharacteristically violent in the process, like brutally beating criminals and who have a connection to Lee to find out where he is, pushing away the people closest to him in his pursuit, and ignoring school and the things he's supposed to be doing, and overall just losing his way over anger, grief, and vengeance. All without the symbiote, tying it back into the symbiote, where Miles is essentially going through the same thing that Peter is, but he doesn't have an alien enhancing his emotions. This is just him. He's just angry. And when Miles does eventually find Lee in the game, it's after Lee is captured by Kraven and then Miles is captured by Kraven. I would have had Miles have a confrontation with Lee before that, which eventually leads to both of them being captured and having their boss fight. And in between all of this going on, I would have Miles see how Peter is acting with the symbiote and hate it, but not realize that he's literally acting the exact same way. Until his final confrontation with Martin Lee, where Lee uses his powers to essentially kind of infiltrate Miles' mind and kind of help him kind of figure out who he is. That wasn't his intention. He was kind of just trying to mess with his head. But in the process, Miles, of course, fought back and, realized the person he was and all that, and that decided that he didn't want to murder a man. And they could have done that, but also in the process have him realize how horrible he was being in the process of trying to get revenge. And I just felt like it was just such a missed opportunity to tie Miles' anger directly into Peter's anger with the symbiote. And like
Yeah.
Miles literally did a lot of nothing. He was basically a glorified sidekick this whole movie, despite the fact that they keep trying to say, "Well, you're both Spider-Man." And I'm like, Miles ain't feeling like Spider-Man because he's not doing nothing.
Right.
Another thing I didn't love was the return of the Mary Jane stealth sections. They're better,
Mm.
for sure, but still unwelcomed.
Ah.
For me, it's a matter of either going all the way or not doing it at all. They're
Mhm.
not a core part of the game's mechanics, so they feel out of place. But if they found a way to better incorporate the way the spiders do stealth with MJ's way of doing stealth, I think it'd feel
Mhm.
better and more natural. In the first two games, there were gadgets made specifically for stealth. So if MJ had some of those and they were a core part of her stealth, like it was a core part of Spider-Man stealth in that first game, I think that would be dope. The gadget selection in this game is unfortunately much smaller.
Oh.
Like while your abilities in this game, you activate your abilities by holding R1. Again, I think I got that wrong. I can't remember if it's R1 or L1 for some reason. I think it's L1. You hold
Hmm.
L1 and you press one of the face buttons, square, triangle, circle, cross. Um,
Mhm.
and then you hold R1 to use one of the gadgets.
Right.
Again, it might be the other way around. For some reason, I can't remember, even though I just played it last night. Um, the key difference is that you get 8 different abilities that you can swap out between the 4 different
Mhm.
buttons that you use for those abilities, but you only get 4 gadgets. And I think simplifying the way that you deploy the gadgets was smart, but decreasing the options for the gadgets, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Um, especially since there's no longer any stealth specific gadgets like they were in the first game. Um,
Right.
but they did introduce, like I said, the new web line for the spiders to walk across above enemies' heads and stealthily take them out. And I think they should
Mhm.
have also had MJ utilize that in somehow, in some type of way, to at least add some more, to keep the flow of the game, making you feel like a spider person, kind of. Um,
Right.
I've grown to like this MJ. Still not the biggest fan of MJ being a reporter. I feel like it's the lowest lanification of Mary Jane, where Mary Jane, like a lot of superheroes have reporters as girlfriends. The
Right.
Flash, Superman, Batman has dated reporters. Like there's so many characters as reporters, and there are a lot of superheroes who also have dated actresses. The difference being is that, eh, as far as I know, most superheroes who have dated actresses, that character is not their final love interest. Mary Jane is the rare
Right.
case of the actress being a character's final love interest, like the person they ultimately end up getting married to and having a kid together. And I feel like that
Mhm.
always made her such a different love interest to most other superhero characters who are just dating reporters. So making her a reporter, I felt like just kind of made her boring. But I've grown
Yeah.
to like this version of NJ, and I want her to be an active part of the story. But if she's going to be an active part of the gameplay, I need her to not interrupt my Spider-Man power fantasy. I'm here to be I'm here to be Spider-Man, not a reporter with a taser,
Right.
okay? So I think finding a way to use spider tech to bring her gameplay more in line with everything else would do that
Mhm.
and make her missions feel less like they're taking the fun away. I definitely dread replaying the game because I haven't replayed it yet and during those missions again because I just don't care. I don't want to be Mary Jane. Stop making me play as Mary Jane unless you're going to give her spider powers. Then I'll gladly play
Right.
as Mary Jane. Because the problem is, there of course is a lot of sexist people who are just upset that they have to play as a woman.
Right.
But then there's people like me who is just like, I like Mary Jane. If she had
She's great.
powers, I'd gladly play as Mary Jane. But she doesn't, so get her the hell out of my face. The suit selection for Peter in this game is abysmal. Miles
Oh,
has
so I've
some
heard.
Miles has some great suits, and the alternate color options that they added for each suit or almost every suit was a dope inclusion. But Peter is missing most of his iconic suits from the first game. So
Dang.
unfortunately, all of the suits from the first game did not make a return. I do understand that probably would have been very time consuming to implement. So I don't
Mhm.
begrudge them not doing that, especially since I hope that some of them will be added in updates. But a lot of the suits he does have are the crappy MCU suits that nobody wanted. The only MCU everyone 100% wanted was his suit from the very end of the third Spider-Man movie, which was like a return to his classic look.
Right.
And most people loved the very first suit he wore in Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming. But no one wanted them to add the version of his suit from the third movie. That's literally just his suit turned inside out. Nobody needed that. Nobody wanted that. It's stupid. We also get 3 Spider-Verse suits for Miles. We get the version where he brought the costume from that store that Stan Lee was working at. We get his final costume from the first movie, and we get his new costume from the second movie, which is dope. I really want that costume, man. It is great.
Right.
But we only get one for Peter, and it's one that wasn't in the first game. So in the first game, they had comic book Spider-Man Noir, but now they have Spider-Verse Noir suit, but not the comic book version in the second game. But they don't have his just full-on, like, straight-up Peter B. Parker Spider-Man suit from Spider-Verse, which is
Interesting.
upsetting. So which something that'll be a really cool suit is that in Miles Morales, and it's back in this game, you have a suit where you have a cat in your backpack. And it also incorporates into like your finishers. The cat will help attack. And the cat's name is Spider-Man. It's a bodega cat, and the dude named the cat Spider-Man. And it's
That's so
it's a cool suit. It'd be cool if they had a Peter suit where he has from Spider-Verse where he has Mayday and the little baby holder on his chest.
Right.
That would actually be a really cool suit.
It would be. It would be.
Child endangerment, but it's okay. She has problems. Hopefully a lot, if not all of the suits from the first game will be added eventually. Insomniac has already shown that they listen to the fans, so I honestly expect them to eventually add all the suits back. Another thing they should start doing in regards to the suits that the Guardians of the Galaxy video game did is credit the artists who created each suit and which comic it debuted in. So they don't necessarily have to go as far as Guardians did, where when you go through the menu to change the different Guardian suits, they give you a whole bio about the suit, and then they say what comic book the suit debuted in, who drew it, who designed it, who wrote that story. That's all they need to do, that last part. They don't need to necessarily give a whole bio, but at the very least credit these amazing artists who designed these suits. But yeah, the next thing I'm going to talk about are some light spoilers, but spoilers nonetheless. Truly, I'm trying to think. How much do you care about spoilers?
I don't.
Good. Okay, I'm going to start off with some light spoilers, but then I'm going to get into some big old spoilers in a second. So, we talked about how Prototype is the Venom game that everyone's looking for. But I also just want a Venom game. Especially after playing this. With Venom now existing in this universe, I and a lot of fans want a Venom spin-off game in the vein of Miles Morales. For me, my ideal Venom game would have 2 Venoms, just like Spider-Man 2 has 2 Spider-Man. 2 characters that were not introduced in the game. I would have be introduced in this Venom game. If they aren't introduced in like some DLC or like a tie-in comic or something. Peter's former bully, Flash Thompson, and the original Venom, Eddie Brock. So Eddie isn't Venom in this game, nor does he even show up. But
really,
I mean, that's not even a spoiler because the creative director said it several times.
Well,
and also everybody who's played the first game, from the end credits of the first game and end credits of Miles Morales, they show you over and over again who Venom is going to be, which I will spoil later, but not now.
Right.
Like it was never going to be Eddie, and some people convinced them that it would be. They were wrong. But yeah, Eddie isn't Venom in this game, nor does he even show up. Why am I? I'm sorry, my brain lagged for a second there.
No worries.
But I would have him be the traditional big, like buff hulking Venom that we know and love, while Flash would become Agent Venom, which he does in the comics. In the comics, Flash joined the army, and he lost his legs. But yeah, sad. But he regains them with the help of the symbiote and becomes a vigilante with a dope design that's very different from any other Venom design before it happened. It's very more kind of like militaristic, was like kind of body armor and plates and stuff. It looks cool. But here's the spoilers, okay? Spoiler alert. Honestly, from here on out, we talking spoilers. I'm done with the spoiler-free stuff. I already gave you a light spoiler warning at the beginning of this part, but
you did.
I'm gonna give you a big one now. So, I'm getting excited just saying this because it blew me away, And I had to pause the game, and I watched somebody play that section last night, and they did the same thing where they paused the game and just didn't say anything. They just stopped,
Mm.
and they were just gobsmacked. And it happened to me when it happened, and so Peter eventually gets the symbiote off. Well, you know what? Let me talk spoiler free for a second before I get to that.
Okay.
Because I didn't talk about, no, forget it. I'm going to keep talking about spoilers. And as I talk about spoilers, I'm going to talk about boss fights. The boss fights in this game are incredible.
Nice.
They're so good. That opening Sandman boss fight, amazing. He literally moves across part of the city as this giant sand monster as you're chasing him. It's so good. You have Mysterio's in the game. You fight Mysterio. That was great. Lizard boss fight, which was in like all of the trailers, is also really good. The Craven boss fight was incredible and very hard at first until like that boss fight forced me to get good at the parry, because they added a parry to this game, and there are certain attacks that you can't dodge. You have to parry, and yeah, Craven forced me to parry because he kept killing me.
Dang.
That boss fight was so good. And then, as you would expect, you had to fight. Peter had the symbiote when he was fighting Craven, and he almost was about to kill Craven, and then Miles stopped him, and then you fight Peter as Miles. It was so good. Oh my god, it was so good. You had to fight Peter as Miles and get the symbiote off him. It was real fun. But then, Peter gets the symbiote off. He's going back to Oscorp, to Dr. Connors, to try and figure out how to destroy it. And then, Harry is upset because, Peter had the black suit on. He says some mean stuff. So Harry's upset, and Harry's dying. That's why he had the symbiote, because he was dying, and they were using it to heal him. That's why it was very obvious from the very end of the first game and Miles Morales. In that end credit scene, they show that he's in a tank with the Venom symbiote on him because he's sick, and they're using it to try and cure him. And it was obvious since then that Harry was going to be Venom, and that is exactly what happened. In this moment, Harry's upset. He knocks the little container with Venom in it out Peter's hand. It breaks. The symbiote gets back on him. He turns into Venom. And then the camera pans out to Spider-Man's back. Boom. About to fight Venom. Nope. His father jumps in the middle and tries to get them to stop. But then Venom he is so big in this game. It makes no sense. He picks up, I'm telling you, he's bigger than I've ever seen him be. He picks up Peter with one hand around his arms and torso.
Oh.
And just lifts him and throws him. And I'm like, why is he so big? And then you play as Venom. I was shook to my core. I didn't know they were going to let us play as Venom. And he was just a straight up, fully playable character for like a smooth 30 minutes. And you're just running around absolutely murdering these security guards at Oscorp Tower, picking them up and slamming them around like Hulk did to Loki in the first Avengers movie. It was so good. And then you fight Kraven at the very end of that as Venom, and then he kills Kraven. He bites his head off. They don't show it. They just show the blood trickling down and the blood on his hands and his mouth. And
that's crazy.
I was shook to my core. Now I said all that.
Shook too.
I low-key got off track. I said all that to say they didn't do that for no reason. We're getting a Venom game. They didn't design a fully playable Venom just to go, and that is the last time you'll ever see Venom again.
Right.
No, they 100% are about to make a Venom game. I believe it in my heart of hearts. And to make him work in the open world, the only things they would have to add is he would have to be a little bit smaller. Like I said, he is a behemoth. He's so big, it makes no sense. They would have to make him a little bit smaller. Still bigger than the average spider person, but not as big as he is. He's literally the size of the Hulk. It's insane.
Oh wow.
And yeah, he can't web swing, but he should be able to because he was already on Spider-Man, and that's how the symbiote figures that out. So they give him the ability to web swing, so he actually move around the city, but also keep his ability to he can't web swing, but what he can do is literally jump like he's the Hulk and just launch himself into the air.
Well,
and it's really cool. Keep that ability. That's cool. Instead of having the web was it slingshot that I mentioned, he should just have like a charge jump that has him just jumping onto rooftops. That would be really cool. And then he only has 2 abilities. I would give him 4 abilities, like all the other characters have. But also,
Right.
He wouldn't have tech gadgets. So replace his gadgets with like symbiote gadgets somehow, like organic type
Yeah.
materials that he uses. Like what was it? There is an ability that like Peter unlocks it when he has the symbiote called like Venom Bomb, where he like just throws goop and it explodes. Like stuff like that. Give him stuff like that works like gadgets, but it's like made out of the symbiote.
Right.
And that's how I think he should work. He would be able to work in his own video game. But Agent Venom, I mentioned him, and the reason I even consider him is because Agent Venom shows up in this game.
Ooh.
Harry, after he discovers that the suit is giving him powers, he doesn't. They don't ever call him Agent Venom. They don't ever call him Venom until he actually becomes a monster. But he like essentially decides to try and become a superhero and work with Peter. And he puts on his own little suit made out of symbiote that looks like the Agent Venom suit. And again, that's another thing where it's like you don't do that for no reason.
Yeah.
You don't just have the Agent Venom suit show up and then go, and that's the end of that. You'll never see it again. So I fully expect the Agent Venom to come back in some way, and it'll probably be Flash because that makes the most sense. And the way I would make him work is, I would have Agent Venom for the most part play exactly like Peter does with the symbiote suit on, but his gadgets should be replaced with military weapons because Agent Venom uses guns, he uses grenades. So I would just replace his gadgets with actual military gadgets. And if it was up to me, I would have the game take place in San Francisco instead of New York. Because if it takes place in New York, well, stuff happens in the game that, I mean, it's Venom. He does bad stuff. They don't like him. So if it takes place in New York, like, there's no excuse for the Spider-Man to not step in. Unless for some reason, I guess they can come up with an excuse. What am I talking about? They could say the Spider-Man went off to space to work with the Avengers or something, because the Avengers do exist in this universe, even though we never see them. So I guess they could use that as an excuse, like Spider-Man's in space, or like he's in a different dimension or something. Like the Venoms are out in New York while Peter is off in the Spider-Verse movies. But yeah, it's a good game. It's a really good game. I don't know if you could tell. But so let's talk about the potential of Spider-Man 3. So something happened to me the last time I played the game that I didn't know was a thing. And this is me after 100% completing everything. There's nothing left for me to do, so I'm just swinging around and having fun and stopping some crimes. And something that can happen in this game is when you're in the middle of stopping a crime, whichever spider person you're not playing as can come in and help you. Just randomly. And then sometimes after you beat them, you walk up to them, press triangle, and they'll do the little meme where they point at each other. Yeah, it's fun. But what I discovered, like, randomly, like I said, this was after I beat the game. There's a chance I could have never discovered this if I just decided to not play it again until New Game Plus came out, because they don't have New Game Plus yet. But when they have it, I'm in there. Is that there's a character from the last game who is now a vigilante, who you have a whole side quest with, and they fight alongside you. They can also pop in and randomly help you stop crimes. And also in the time period after Harry becomes Agent Venom and before Peter takes the symbiote from him, he can also come in and help you stop random crimes.
Oh.
And I didn't know that. I completely missed that, because by the time I got to the point for that to happen, well, I was doing the main story, so I wasn't just going around doing random crimes. So that just never popped up for me. And what that lets me know is that this feels like a beta for them to have that system in the third game, but with other Marvel heroes. Like having like Daredevil or like the Fantastic Four or like Iron Fist or Luke Cage or someone randomly pop in and help Spider-Man in like a fight. That would be really cool, and I hope that's what this is leading up to, because some spoiler podcasts have finally started to come out like late last week with Brian Intihar, the creative director of Spider-Man 2 and the first Spider-Man, being in those interviews and talking about Spider-Man. And people ask him about Daredevil because Daredevil's office, Nelson and Murdoch's, legal office are in the first game. And Miles Morales, they're being evicted. And in the third game, their name isn't on a plaque anymore.
Oh.
So everybody keep asking him, like, what's that about? And he says some things that makes it feel like Daredevil might show up in a side quest in a similar way to this other vigilante lady who shows up in this game, shows up in a side quest and helps out Spider-Man, or, you help out them. So Daredevil will probably be in Spider-Man 3. And whenever you're in Hell's Kitchen stopping crimes, he will probably pop in and help you out. And that is really cool. And
Nice.
I don't know if you know this. They're making a Wolverine game, Insomniac.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know how you didn't know that. I actually did because they showed a teaser trailer a while back where it was literally just a person sitting at a bar, and it said Insomniac, and I was like, oh, it's obviously Spider-Man 2 because this was before Spider-Man 2 was announced. It was actually Spider-Man 2 was announced in that same like PlayStation showcase, but it was like later in the showcase.
Oh wow!
And everyone was like, well, obviously it's Spider-Man 2 because we know they're working on Spider-Man 2 because they said that.
Right.
So a person walks up to him and he just pops his claw. Well, we see his arm, and everybody sees his arm, and we're like, well, obviously that's Wolverine. Is Wolverine going to be in Spider-Man 2? And then it just says Wolverine. I'm like, oh, they're just making a Wolverine game. It's not Wolverine is going to make a cameo in the next Spider-Man game. No, Wolverine is just getting his own game.
Getting his own game.
From Insomniac, which is going to be dope. Hopefully he's rated M. Because it hasn't been confirmed if it will or not. But, I mean, come on. It's Wolverine.
It should be. Yeah. It's got.
And I keep forgetting that you're a big X-Men fan. So
I'm a huge X-Men fan. That's the one Marvel property I'm real into.
Yeah.
I hope Jubilee's in it. Smiley face.
Yeah.
They never put her in anything, and it makes me sad.
She was in one movie, and she didn't do it.
Right. She was in one movie, and then the cartoons, and that was it. And I love Jubilee. She's my favorite. I hope they do more with her someday.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with this because it's going to take place in the same universe as Spider-Man. So I wonder if they're going to try to like make other games in this universe. That would be cool. Because they just make good superhero games.
They do.
But I don't know why my body makes me want to burp every time I'm on this podcast. But also in the end credits, they show a character that will 100% be in the third game. Well, obviously they showed the character. Why would they not show up again? It would be weird if they were like, "Here's the character," and then they never showed up again.
Right.
But they're teasing that his mom's dating someone, right? And I was afraid that his mom was dating Carnage.
Oh.
Because I got spoiled that Carnage was in the game, but not as like his symbiote self, but like the person Cletus Cassidy who becomes Carnage. I got spoiled that he was in the game and that they were teasing that he was going to be in something else. A lot of people are assuming he'll be in some type of DLC story. I think that if they're going to do the Venom spinoff game, Carnage will probably be the main villain of that. But there's also a chance he could be the main villain in the DLC as well. But he is in the game, but he has nothing to do with Miles Morales. I was so afraid because he's just a murderer. That's all he is. He's a murderer. So he's just a murderer who ends up getting a symbiote and becomes a worse murderer.
Oh boy.
So I was afraid that he was dating Miles' mom, and I was like, this is going to suck.
Right.
They're probably about to kill Miles' mom. But no, it was this random Asian dude, and then they said his name, and I was like, huh. And then he was like, oh yeah, and this is my daughter, Cindy. And then it all clicked into place. Cindy Moon is a character named Silk, who is one of the many spider people in the Spider-Man universe. So we're finally gonna get a woman spider person in this next game, a spider woman, if you will, which is the word I probably should have just said instead of a woman spider person.
Woman spider person is
Good
crazy.
Woman spider person. We're gonna get a spider woman in the next game. And her debut is wild. The person who wrote it has apologized several times for it. Where initially she was like as over-sexualized as you can get for a character when she first popped up. Not in terms of design, but in terms of story. The story was Silk actually got bit by the same spider as Peter at the same, like on the same day at the same like trip that they had. They both got bit by that spider, but she got captured and like experimented on or whatever. But then eventually she escapes. And for whatever reason, there's this weird, like they're relating it back to like spider stuff, like the way spiders work. There's this hormone that whenever they're around each other, they gotta have sex. And that was that was her character for when she was first introduced was whenever she's around Peter, she just wants to have sex with him. And they do. And it was weird. And the writer has gone, I'm so sorry. I was just a horny man.
Writing at least he admitted it.
Yeah, he admitted I was just writing my horny little Spider-Man story. And I'm so sorry. And since then, the character has been not that. And a lot of people like the character. And they're obviously not going to do it in this movie. It'd be wild if she walked in and was like, hey, Miles, let's have sex. That'd be crazy, especially since his girlfriend is standing next to him. But yeah, she's going to be in the next game as a spider person, most likely. If I had to bet, she'll probably get bit by a spider in the DLC. And then when by the time the third game comes, we're going to have 3 spiders in Spider-Man 3. But yeah, it was fun. Oh, actually, one last thing before I wrap up. I was hoping to finish this podcast in an hour, but we're at hour 36. So
it's just that good.
Since every character has their own little abilities. Peter has the spider arms. Miles has the electricity. But what will Cindy have? Here's my idea. I really wanted Peter to have web constructs, like he does in the older Spider-Man games, where he makes like giant fists and hammers out of his webs. I wanted him to be able to do that in this game, and I felt like it was kind of teased in the last game that was a possibility, because the villains in Miles Morales, the enemies, have this thing called programmable matter, where they can like make weapons, it's kind of like nanotechnology, where they can just make technology out of thin air. And I was like, he could use that with his webs and make like a giant fist and use that to do cool stuff. But he uses his arms. But I'm like, okay, now that he has the spider arms, Silk can have the spider constructs. And they even further kind of make it feel like they're going to do that, because at the beginning of the game, Peter literally, or Genki tells Peter like, oh yeah, you still have those 3D printers in your web shooters, right? Which, what? That makes no sense. But
right.
I guess
what are you talking about?
But I guess he has 3D printers in his tiny web shooters that are on his wrist. I don't know how that works, but it's fake, so it doesn't matter. And if you can't make a giant fist out of that, what can you do?
Right.
So I think she'll probably have web constructs as her abilities in the third game. And yeah, I'm just excited for that third game. Well, more, I'm excited for a Venom game. I needed it in my life. And can't wait to see what that Wolverine game looks like. Now that they're not working on Spider-Man, or I'll take it back, because they're probably working on DLC. So never mind, they're still working on Spider-Man for sure. But because I was about to say, now that they're basically done with Spider-Man, technically it still has some updates that needs to be happening. They're probably going to go all in on Wolverine, but no. Insomniac is almost always, for a while now, working on 2 games at once. They're called Insomniac for a reason. They claim not to crunch, but I don't believe you, because these games be coming out too fast.
Right.
They really made Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart at the same time. And then you're going to tell me you work on Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine at the same time, and y'all getting sleep? Nah, I don't believe you. Nah. But yeah, that's all I got. Game's good. Game's fun.
Yeah?